2020 saw a spike in outdoor recreation. Our waters were crowded, and specific individual trout were targeted as never before. Our home waters were no exception. As summer peaked early August, our national holiday arrived. We found ourselves in drought conditions and stream levels very low. Our low trout populations were holed up in pools and easily targeted, clearly worked over all summer. Tents popped up along our rivers, and you had no idea who was fishing, hiking, horseback riding, paddling, or mountain biking. At the first sign of humans, you had to assume you were fishing follow-up or pressured and disturbed fish. This day was no exception. We were pushed an hour bike ride up valley for how many people we saw. As it was, we found we were fishing third follow-up on this small stream. We're sharing how we went about our day when it was obvious we weren't going to escape people.
Alright, we got a beautiful little riffle that comes right into the corner bend here, and a nice bucket right below that shelving gravel riffle, and that turns into the glide into the tail out, and as you can see, all sorts of structure, and we know that there's fish tucked underneath those logs and sticks across the way. But if we come back up here and just have a look here, right in front of that red rock across the way, we'll see a fish just kind of surfing right on the bottom there. And that fish, I'm going to assume that these tracks right below me, and that ties in to that horse camp outfitter site right there, you have to assume that this was fished recently. So we're going to come back, and right now, if we zoom back in over here, you'll see that there are actually two fish. They're lined up right in a row on the drop off in that little flat glass clear water fishing follow-up. And I'm going to assume that this is not going to be easy. And I've got 5X, I've got a 13-foot leader, even though we're in the backcountry Cutthroat Trout stream, and it's going to be slow, long leader, light gear, light tippet, 5X, 13-foot leader down to a dry fly that's low profiled, that will sit in the water meniscus with a dropper nymph of about maybe 18 to 24 inches on 5X to a size 18 pheasant tail nymph. So I'm just going to slowly work into place kind of right at my rod tip on the intern, and I'm going to cast slightly up just along that sandy shelf, because there's two things going. It's shelving that way, and on the intern it's shelving conically, which means that that whole thing is basically just a cone-shaped fan of fine gravel. And these fish, there's two in a row about 4 feet apart. I'm just going to try to feed the back one and see if it'll come up and eat my nymph. I'm not counting on a dry fly take, and this is where, yeah, sure as anything, he's going to come up and eat my dry fly. But I'm just going to feed that along, short cast, place it on the water delicately, and just let it turn the corner. And what I don't want to do is a long cast. I want to keep that cast on the water and keep mostly the long fine leader over top of the fish drifting through. That way when it button hooks, when I go to lift, I can just slowly lift, and just when that leader gets to the fly, I can just kind of gently pop it out of the water without creating a big disturbance on that arcing bow of the leader, because the last thing you want to do is rip that leader off the water, because that's what's going to spook the fish. So let's have a go. So first fish of the day after an hour bike ride in and a bit of a walk just past the camp, and you know, you project so many things. That fish is going to fill in the blank. Well, no, how about I called it. I was expecting the nymph eat, and I did everything, just kind of lay it out perfectly on the inside and just let that drift in along the nice conical drop off of the fine sand and gravel. And I was expecting, because I had it in my head an absolute, I got spanked for my absolute, and that was, he's not going to eat the dry fly, he's going to eat my nymph. Well, sure as anything, I start seeing him come upstream, up the water column, and I was just bracing for that nymph eat. What I was expecting on the nymph eat the nymph and turn out to set the hook. No. He just kept coming right up, ate my dry fly, and turned in towards me instead of out. And so, no, as I said earlier, he's going to eat my dry fly because I expect him to take the nymph. So now, he's still in the back end there. Now that he's eaten my dry fly, and we're potentially fishing follow-up, and I got a fish, he's still there, he just ate, he just got stuck. Will he eat my dropper nymph? Well, there's two fish still rod length apart. So let's go and see what happens this time. Okay, so a whole bunch of things happening here. This fly, okay, so all the things about the dry fly eat. Oh no, it's not gonna do this, not gonna do that. This fly right here has been in my fly box. I guided Linder last in 2005 before the red deer flooded. So it would have been 2003. And this little hopper pattern, I remember fishing it one day on the Red Deer River. So that's 15, 16 years ago, which is where I'm going with this. And it was during a hopper thing, and we had to go smaller and smaller hoppers. We got a lot of fish. But this fly I left in my fly box, and I pulled it out today because I remembered that day. And I thought, you know what? The big browns and the red deer were getting fussy on small stuff. And what we did, we had to go smaller and smaller. I thought, well, this would be a perfect time to pull out this low profile, tiny little hopper and just fish that and hang a dropper nymph off it. And what a great idea. In fact, I got 2 fish to eat this one. But what I didn't think about was this fly is at least 15 years old. And there, after 2 hook takes, I'm looking and there's absolutely no hook on my fly. It probably broke after the first fish on the hook set, and I pitched it back in there on fish number 2, and of course it didn't stick because, well, there's no hook on the dry fly. So yeah. Genius points running amok. One of the 2 is actually still nymphing, so probably worth trying to get a little nymph over top of the fish. And I don't think it's deep enough, so I just have a small tungsten bead. I'm going to upsize. I try to get a fly with a bigger tungsten bead to get it drop down quicker, or a more slender with an oversized bead. That way I can get it into the fish's zone and a little quicker. Yeah, it's probably not going to take the dry fly now. You know, once you take care of all those dry fly eats, yeah, probably not going to do it again. So I'm going to just go a little bit bigger so I can get down to the fish.
We've come up along a whole pile of downed logs and sticks here. And right along this bank and behind me, there's actually 2 cutthroats. And one is holding right at the very end of this log. We can just see its tail. And the other one is actually above the log by about a couple feet. So this is all about approach and presentation, obviously. The lower fish, what I'd really love to do is just see if I can get him on a lateral line take. So my tactic will be to just simply go in and get a cast as tight as I can to that log where you can see there's a little bit of flow, and just see if he's willing to come and move to it. I'm only about probably 12 feet to my top fly, and I am using 5X because it's really low water conditions and these fish have been worked a fair bit. We have seen footprints today, so it's best just to suspect, hey, go with much lighter tippet. I've decided that I'm actually going to go with a beetle, little bit bigger profile, and it's got legs and whatnot, and I can even give it a bit of a twitch. And I'm going to try this side, and if nothing, I'm going to actually go kind of just across the end of the log, and we'll see. So I got that fish to come and look, but it certainly was a refusal. I deliberately smacked it on the water, but then I let it drift, and Dave said, hey, go again, because the fish was starting to come, but didn't come fully. And so I went again, smacked it on the water, it drifted down, and that fish came and looked, and of course refused. Now, I think in the end, I didn't have the instinct to do this at the time, but in the end, had I twitched it once, he might have attacked it. There's no guarantee of that, but hey. What I'm choosing to do now is switch up and actually just go with a large pheasant tail. Something that's gonna get down right now, get his attention, and he's either gonna eat it or he's not.
At least that was the plan. As I was changing flies, 2 horseback riders came walking up the river and rode right through our pool. The fish scurried under the logs and the water went off color. 5 minutes later, another pair of horses did the same thing. In talking to them, they told us that for the first time in their 40 years in the valley, the main trail was too busy with hikers and mountain bikers, and they had to go off trail. Since the bush was too heavy, they were forced into the creek. Well, that was the end of that spot. Reality was that we could have waited 15 minutes for things to settle out, but we wanted to see a bit more water and headed upstream. As luck had it, 2 bends up, we ran into 50 cows standing in the middle of the creek. If you wonder if we get frustrated, just listen to Dave's voice.
Basically walked up right beside this cutthroat and saw it. You put out a cast, you missed it on the dry because you probably weren't really expecting it necessarily.
I actually didn't see it when I cast to it. I was
There
just,
you go, yeah, you just cast to the water.
because there was 4 cows in the creek ahead of me,
Yeah.
I just thought, nah, wasn't inspired because there's 4 cows right in the river.
Yeah, exactly, hey?
So yeah, I missed him on the dry, and I said, plop your dropper, and there you go.
Yeah, exactly, and I just stepped up and you got rolling, put a cast through there, and you took the nymph.
After this fish, I had a chat about reality. We chose our water, and we knew there were people and cows everywhere. I had a decision in how best to enjoy our day. We decided, rather than worry about fish numbers, to just go look for one special fish to enjoy on the camera. And a good bit of luck. Just upstream the river split, and the anglers ahead of us took to the main stem, while we veered off to the small finger.
We're at this really gorgeous log jam pool. And we've been here for actually an hour. And Dave's been filming, trying to get a close-up eat on camera. And this fish is nymphing a lot, but not doing much on the surface. I think it's eaten, a water strider, and that's literally about it. It actually refused a stonefly and a caddis, I think you said, behind the camera there. And so it's not taken a lot on the surface. But what I want to do is I do want to go after this fish. It's a cutthroat, so there's still a good chance it will eat on the surface. And I just want to use my drake pattern here. I just have a smaller mayfly emerging drake pattern. And just give it a go. I'm going to see where he is and just try to lead him a little bit by a couple feet and see what happens. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot in the world, so got to give it a go. Just incredible.
We both said he didn't
Yep.
see it, and before you knew it, he nymphed twice and then circled around and came up and said, "Yabba dabba doo," you know?
Oh yeah, and then finally he noticed it.
Wicked.
Came and smoked it. So that was just the absolute totality of the magic in this spot, because we came here, we wanted to film rises. Dave did get 1 or 2 maybe rises, but he got some wonderful nymph eats, and then we were able to just give it a bit of time, and I was able to go after this fish and have that moment, and that was absolutely awesome. I do love fishing for cutthroat where it's really heavily wooded and you've got all this stuff. Obviously not that hard a fight because it wasn't that big a fish, but it's so much fun. Absolutely loved it. But look at this water, just
Yeah.
stunning water.
What a spot for that fish, hey?
Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So this is really cool. Really gorgeous glide coming down, and just broken rock against the bank, and right where that kind of fine gravel sand meets the rock, just on a little sunbeam, there's this green kind of ghostly gorgeous cut. It's risen 3 or 4 times just on these little mayflies, and a couple times on a caddis. So I'm just going to tie on a little elk hair caddis, and we're going to see if we can set this up. He should take straight away. Not a lot of fishing pressure, so I'm just going to go with the standard, well, just to be safe, we always do 12 foot. I am down to 4x tippet just to be sure. And the idea is just to place the fly 3-4 feet ahead of the fish and just let it drift. I suspect that fish is going to come upstream to the caddis, because he's dropped down a couple times to eat the mayflies, but he's just going pop on the caddis. And I don't know, it could be, hopefully I don't screw this up for you, but I suspect he's going to... I doubt
you will.
Yeah, well, I think he's going to pop forward on the caddis. That's my hunch, but let's go see.
So we've got a cutthroat here who's holding in the tail out of this pool. And he's only risen once, but something that we've learned in New Zealand is that fish that are holding in tail outs and they're quite shallow, you have a good chance of them taking your dry fly. They've got every opportunity to see it, and so there's a real good chance that he'll take the dry fly. And so that's exactly what I'm going to use. You know, it sounds funny to apply New Zealand tactics when we're here in Alberta, Canada, but the truth is that there's a lot of tactics that are actually very universally sound, and this is one. If you've got a fish that's feeding shallow water, tail out, try hitting it up with just a dry fly first, even if you don't see it rise, because there's a real good chance that it's going to want to feed on the top. So I'm using a 9'5" weight rod, which I typically love to use most of the time, and I've got about a 12-foot leader down to 5x, just simply because we're talking really low water right now, and some fish that could have been worked. Not necessarily today, but they have been worked before. So again, 12 feet to my dry fly, and I'm just using this little emerger drake pattern. Cutthroat doesn't mean that you don't want to just continue to apply all the things that you typically would, and that is in low water conditions, you know, a longer leader, taper to 5x, and a decent mayfly or whatever other fly that you think they could be eating. And just go about it that way. And my approach was, again, to get in the water as well. Get behind the fish whenever you can. You have a much better chance of being able to lay out that line straight and be able to lead the fish appropriately. Apply all the things that you know that are going to help you to catch that fish in various circumstances. Yeah, so it's been a pretty incredible pool because we've not only caught a fish in the tail out, but Dave's hooked a fish right across in kind of the flats right above the stump, and then he got another take just in front of his log.
Well, that was the same fish. Come on now.
Oh, okay, same fish. Probably same fish, yeah. Anyway, we're still working this pool, which is awesome. And there's another fish that's further up, kind of what I would call in the heart of the pool. And he's moving around in there. He hasn't risen again. But honestly, because these fish are on right now and they're taking dries, I'm going to give it a go again with my dry fly. Again, it's this hair wing emerger, and just have a go and see what happens. If he doesn't want to take it, well, then I'll put on a dropper net.
Or just grab my rod.
Or grab your rod.
I bet you.
So yeah, a couple casts in there, good drifts. No chance of him wanting to come up, so I'm going to go with a dry dropper.
Awesome. So this guy, we're on a side braid of this river, and this fish is coming and going on the inside, just above the log there, glued right on the bottom. And he'll come down, sit, and kind of nymph, and then kind of bugger off down, follow that jam of roots over there, and you can see him just kind of go upstream, and then you can see him come back down, flittling his way downstream. And right now he's just above that log in there. And I don't know, if I put on a tractor fly, maybe he'd come up and eat it, but I think he's going to eat the nymph. So I've been wrong pretty much every time today. So let's just see if he eats the nymph or what happens. But I am gonna, if I hook up, I am gonna have to horse him out just a little bit to avoid all this crap. So, give it a go. Yep.
Have a go, right?
Yep.
We've just walked up on this Cutthroat Trout stream to a split in the river, and we've come up to this gorgeous, long, shallow flat. and there's a beautiful cutthroat, and he's just working his way up where there's kind of a depression kind of in the middle of this flat, and he's going right along the rocks and feeding, and this should be just beautiful. I am going to again use my 12-foot leader, taper down to 5X, and this hair wing emerger, and I think there's a really good chance that I'm going to get an eat on it. And hopefully, Dave, you have as much fun on the camera, because it's a beautiful, beautiful spot. To find a fish in such gorgeous water on this incredible flat, and then to just wait it out for the right timing for both the camera and for me on the rod, and to get the cast I wanted. You can't ask for anything better sometimes, and that was it for me today. Just absolutely stunning.
It's a really cool, really deep pool on this back channel, side channel, and it's got to be at least 6 feet deep, as deep as I am tall, and it's got a really beautiful back eddy and a really nice shelf at the top, and a lot of really nice back eddy logs on the other side of the creek. And not much happening today, so this fish is pretty much just eating all the food that's coming into the pool. Hasn't risen, but he's sitting right on that gravel shelf, and he's nosed into kind of an angle like that, just waiting for everything to come by. And I think I'm just going to stick with my long leader and my stimulator, my little stimulator, and just see, because he's only about, I want to say 2.5 feet deep. I'll take a couple casts with the dry, see if he comes up. I took the nymph off. If he doesn't come up, I'll tie that dropper back on, and that'll be, the dropper I have tied up is about 22 inches to size 12, 14, kind of oversized tungsten bead on it, just to get drop shot right in there, and that should do it either which way.
So this is the last spot of the day, and right in the heart of the trough is where this fish was holding, and we could just see him swaying, feeding. Never rose, but as with most fish today, it's been pretty common. They might not have risen, but they're probably going to take a dry fly. And so what I did is I actually grabbed Dave's rod, because he's got a little small stonefly down to a nymph, and I knew that would ride well. Little bit more choppy waves in this riffle, and so I've got some mayfly emerger, and it wasn't going to ride well. And so anyway, popped it out there, and yeah, first drift through, that fish just comes right up.
It was lunging.
You could just see him coming
forward
up from the deep and lunge right up and grabbed it. And what an awesome way to end the day. Beautiful cutthroat, I don't know, 18, 19 inches, maybe somewhere in there, but a fat cutthroat, healthy one, and just so much fun.